Here's chapter 14 of Graham the Gargoyle. A friend indeed. Rain and wind greeted Graham, blasting him in the face as the angry figure slapped him across the cheek. You are one pathetic gargoyle, his attacker shouted over the downpour. He stumbled back. What are you doing here? How? You're not the only one who can sneak around at night and jump through a portal to Earth, Ott said, displaying a toothy grin. Graham couldn't believe it. The troll had followed them across. And don't think what you said at lunch about not having anyone to stay back for didn't hurt. Ott wiped the water on his palms before reaching into his vest. But now you're trapped here with me. Graham suddenly felt guilty. How had everything gotten so out of control? Ott produced a rolled parchment from his pocket. Here's our return ticket. Graham recognized it right away. How'd you get that? Blord had it last. Ott rubbed the back of his left hand. The troll's knuckles were banged up. Well, it turns out my fist is much harder than a bully's nose. And yes, as he ran home to Daddy, he moaned how I'd get what was coming to me. Looks like we're in the same boat now, huh? Graham smiled. It was then that his grandfather spoke. I need to take my place. Graham kneeled to assist, ashamed he had forgotten about his hardening relative. The older gargoyle's eyes were completely covered in a stony film. Your eyes. Thoroughly useless now. You'll have to be my guide. Help me to the front of the steeple. The ledge in front is ideal for me. Plenty of room to spread my wings there. Graham and Ott worked together to move the gargoyle. Graham had to step out onto the narrow ledge to shepherd his grandfather the last few steps. He slipped twice on the slick stone. Looking down, he sighed. Grandfather, the ledge is barely wide enough for me. You won't fit. Just direct me to the spot, and I'll find my proper place. I don't need much, just enough to wrap my claws around. Graham hugged one of the front columns as Ott slowly leveraged the older gargoyle out onto the ledge with Graham. The young gargoyle didn't look down. He couldn't afford a case of vertigo at this point. He reached a hand out to his grandfather and pulled him onto the ledge. The slow-moving gargoyle lost his footing once, but Graham helped him keep his balance. The intensity of the rain increased as his grandfather solidly placed his feet in position and dug his claws into the stone. Graham was surprised at how long the claws were. His grandfather had been hiding them under the bed sheets for the past few months. They had to be long in order to secure himself to his new final resting spot. Graham marveled at the forethought. Claw growth for gargoyles was slow. His grandfather hunched over, drawing his arms around his bent knees. Most of his hide was now a dull gray. Only a little orange remained around his neck and jaw. You need to climb over me to get back inside the steeple, Graham. Be quick. I need to spread my wings, and there's very little time left. Graham knew that outstretched wings were important, that they signified invitation and determination to other gargoyles. If his grandfather hardened now with his wings closed, it would be a dishonor. The young gargoyle climbed over his grandfather's back and slid onto the floor of the steeple. He hopped to his feet and spun around in time to see his grandfather sweep open his wings. They were huge and majestic. Graham couldn't recall the last time he had seen the wings unfurled. Oops, sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm really messed up here. Oh, Graham couldn't recall the last time he had seen the wings unfurled. Ott gasped, startled almost as much as Graham at the size of the wings. Impressive, the troll whispered. Graham's grandfather, his body almost completely calcified, managed to turn his head to look back one last time. He knew the gargoyle's eyes were useless, and the gesture was more for Graham's benefit, a chance to see his loved one's face one last time. His voice was faint and scratchy. Not a bad set of wings, huh? He coughed. I was tiny-winged like you, and look at me now. He smiled, the act clearly painful. Your flight tomorrow will happen as it's supposed to. Know that I love you so much, and you will reach unimaginable heights in your life whether you choose to touch the clouds or not. The older gargoyle's head swiveled away. Graham touched his grandfather's outstretched wings. They were hard. He was all statue now. He was gone. Graham thought of Parsons and knew that wasn't true. His grandfather hadn't left. He was still there, both in the statue and in a far more important place, Graham's heart. Ott patted Graham's shoulder. We need to leave. The gargoyle put his arms around his grandfather's waist and gave the statue a quick hug. He withdrew and walked past Ott, heading to the stairs that led back down to the church. From the stairwell, Muffled voices could be heard. The wet footprints lead up here. I told you someone came in. I never leave this place locked up. Graham froze. Humans. Hello? Anybody up there? Graham held his breath and motioned for Ott to stay still. The voice grew nearer. It was obvious the person was addressing someone else. No, I will not call the constable, Margaret. This is a church. We are here to offer sanctuary. Did you find any ID in that backpack yet? Graham whispered to Ott. We can't let them see us. Hello, this is Father Nelson. Are you hurt? Do you need assistance? Ott pointed to the roof. I came up a ladder. We can go back down it, activate the spell, and be home in a snap. Come on. The troll clambered out of the steeple and onto the sloped expanse of shingles to their right. He was already halfway across the roof when Graham climbed out and followed. He did his best not to look down. The shingles, while rough, were slippery. He lost his footing twice, sliding a good 3 feet at one point. Ott shouted back to him, I can barely see the roof in this rain. Be careful, especially near the edges. Some of these shingles are loose. The troll stopped and stood near the edge of the roof near the back of the building, gesturing madly for Graham to hurry. Graham approached at an unsafe speed, afraid any second they would be spotted by the humans who were surely up in the steeple by now. He spied the top of the ladder poking up over the roof's edge. Thankfully, the wind hadn't blown it over. Just as Graham met up with his friend, Ott swung himself over the edge, attempting to land smoothly on the top rung of the ladder below. Instead, the troll's feet skidded off the slick rung as his hands fumbled for purchase on the rain-soaked shingles. Graham watched in slow motion as his best friend fell. No, he screamed.